Go.
This is all pretty cash. I'll ask the questions and feel free to answer however you feel fit. But John, I'll make this assumption that you're the oldest.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. And you started down at Bowie what year?
Juniors. I started when I couldn't tell you what year, but say when I was under 9s, which would have been roughly, what year did the club start?
63.
Yeah, I would have just about started then. No, I think I was a bit young for that. I remember I started playing in the Mighty Midgets when I was under 9, and then at school I hurt my knee on a skateboard thing one day, and so then I didn't play footy in under 13s or under 15s till second year under 15s. I played a little bit at school, and then I came back to the club in under 15s after having played in Mighty Midgets, which would have been the under 9s then. So that would have been around 1970, 69, 60, about 1967 or something like that. And so then I had a year under 15, 2 years under 17, so I didn't have the awful lot of junior games. And then in the under 17s I actually went on and the under 17 year I went on and played in the senior premiership, which was a bit of an exciting start because the way footy worked then, the firsts and seconds played at opposite grounds, and I couldn't tell you how many times, but 4 or 5 times at least during the seasons we would play under 17s and we'd be asked to fill in for the seconds. So we'd just play our game, sit down and have an orange or a sandwich, and then go and play off the bench in the seconds. And that wasn't abnormal. And then we got to the end of the year, they asked 3 of us, myself, Neil Luxmore and David Lyons, to train with the seniors, and the seniors were playing in B division then, and they'd finished second on the ladder, but Dingley had finished on top, and Dingley were undefeated and were very dominant and beaten them by maybe 15 goals in the last home and away game at Beaumaris. So the old coach, Frank Sherrard, apologies to Frank if he hears this, thought he might need a secret weapon, so he asked the 3 of us to train. We trained, he picked none of us in the second semi. They lost the second semi, but only by about probably 3 or 4 or 5 goals. And then they played Ashburton in the preliminary final. We thought, oh, he'll pick us this week because they've lost, but he didn't pick us. And as we would have found out afterwards, he didn't pick us because you wouldn't pick good young kids against Ashburton in the preliminary final, because if they dared to play well, they wouldn't be playing the next week. And then out of the blue, he picked me to play in the grand final. So I got a game in the grand final, and we won that grand final, beat the unbeaten side, which was a bit of a wonderful baptismal start for my footy at Bowie.
16 years of age.
Might have been 17.
Turned 17.
Under 17 would have turned 17 during the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
What position did they play in the grand final?
I played in the ruck.
Okay.
Because the opposition captain coach was a ruckman, and he was a good player, one of the Corrigans, and he was their captain coach, and he was a bit of a star, and I think the idea was to have the young jumpy guy who could just annoy him, and it was someone he hadn't played against. And I think I did reasonably well. I might have kicked a goal or 2, handled the ball, and I got subbed off. It was 19th and 20th man then. I think I went off towards the end of the 3rd quarter, and Andy King, whose place I'd taken, came on, and we kicked the first goal for the day, and I think we played all day between 3 and 9 points ahead and won the game. Didn't know what it hit me. It was really quite exciting.
Absolutely.
So that was the start of my first season. Well, if you don't count the off the bench from the under 17s, that'd be my first senior go.
Fantastic. And obviously kept playing seniors from there on in.
Look, I didn't play any more seniors. The next year I went up to Sandringham to play in the under 19s, and my footy went on from there. You know, that year because I was big, I didn't. They promoted me from the under 19s to the seconds, and then halfway through the year I got the talk one night about going back to play in the thirds, because they're a pretty strong club, and I thought, oh, it's a bit rough, but because I've been going all right. and somebody broke down at training, and then the next week somebody got reported, and the week after I'm first rank in the firsts. So I played the last half a dozen games in the seniors for Sandringham the next year, and I played there for the next decade.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you went over to Perth at one stage, did you?
That was just a pre-season thing, didn't play any footy over there. We did some training at Subiaco, but we were pretty much on holiday rather than football mode.
Okay. And in the meantime, who was next cab off the rank?
It was me.
So when did you start playing?
Well, I was just thinking while I was talking to John, same, I played a couple of games of mighty midgets, but I would assume then 13's probably 67. So played through that, because I'm sure 72 was my last year 17s. We won a flag in that, thank God. I played 330 something games at the club, and that's the one and only flag, and that's my biggest disappointment. So yeah, that was 72.
Right.
Then I went off to Sandy for a few years, had a year overseas, and came back in 78 after they'd won in 77. I played in the premiership team at Sandy in 77 in the reserves.
Yeah.
But yes, if I'd come back a year earlier, I could have hopefully played in that one.
So up until that point, did you, two of you played together, or?
John and I,
Yeah.
no.
No, you hadn't. Okay.
'Cause he's old enough that he's, I think, a 3-year gap sort of thing.
Right.
And you just got the 2-year overlap in the juniors, which they don't, of course, have anymore. It's
Yeah,
the same age group going right through.
that's right. And so, John, you didn't play in the 77 premiership, or did you?
No. 77 I was
Sandringham.
playing footy at Sandringham. We got the biggest hiding of all time from Port Melbourne in front of the 45,000 people maybe at the old Fitzroy ground, Junction Oval.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the rest of us had a very good year in 77.
Yeah.
Bowie, as I just said, won their premiership,
Yep.
which they played at Sandringham.
Mm.
Pretty sure they played at Sandy. They certainly had the rooms booked up
They had
there.
the function at Sandringham.
You know,
They
that's-
played at Cheltenham.
70, yeah,
Oh,
played
right, they
Cheltenham,
might
that's
have
right.
too, yeah.
That's the footy.
I just remember because of that, because I played in the reserves premiership side, and that was fabulous. We fell into 4th spot, and we just expected to go out week 1, then week 2, and went the whole way. The 2 younger brothers played in the 19s premiership side the same day, so level at Sandy.
Yeah.
And gone back to Sandy, so basically Bowie have got upstairs at the social club, the 19s were downstairs.
No, we were in the
rooms?
old club rooms.
Okay, well, obviously I got pissed. So we had 3 celebrations going in. These 2 had played 19s, I played reserves at Sandy, and the Bowie boys were there, so flitted around during the night celebrating premierships. The big fella was the only one missed out that year.
So who was the next cab off the rank? You,
Tony.
Tony.
Yeah, guilty.
Yes.
Yeah, look, I would have started at Bowie, probably played a couple of years mighty midgets. I reckon under 13s probably started 1970. Yeah, I played 2 years, 13s, 15s and 17s. I would have played every second year with Tom, so Tom was a year behind me. So every second year we played together. Had won one premiership, I think, under 15s. Had a year after the juniors, played in the seniors at Bowie, and then went down to Sandy and had a year in the thirds.
Okay. What year did you play seniors at Bowie?
First year was 76
Okay.
under Jerry Callahan.
Yep.
Mickey Shaw as captain, and then we had a year at Sandy, then went back to Bowie the year after. Again, Jerry was still coach down there, and then John came and coached the next year, 1980, so that was the first year all the boys played together.
Okay. And what, how would you describe Jerry as a coach?
Oh, look, it's different, you know, I was young then, you know,
He was
Jerry,
a character.
he was a very colourful character. You know, as we were just talking a little bit earlier, some of the stories he used to tell and stuff. But he was a very colourful character. Obviously had a really good history himself. It was a long time ago. I was young. I probably didn't understand whether he was a good coach or not a good coach.
Do you think he changed the culture of the club at all, or?
Well, they'd won a premiership, as Mick was saying earlier, like the year before. They won the premiership, and that was obviously a big thing for them. But I kind of missed that, and it's just a little bit hard to tell. I'd only had the 1 year in the seniors before that, so it was a little bit hard to tell.
And Tom, when did you play? You played juniors, obviously.
Yeah, 13. Well, 13s was the youngest official footy, up to that stage. So when you're, I don't know, 9 or 10, you're playing. The people that missed out once a month, they'd play the mighty midgets. All the young kids that missed out. So that would be 1969 or something like that. You'd fill in, and if the 13s was short, you get a game. But then 13s, 15s, 17s through the 70s. Premiership in 72 with the 13s, with Marty Harris was coach. A few finals, but yeah.
And then off to Sandringham, and then
Played 17s, and then I played 2 years at Sandringham in the 19s, and a year in the seconds, and then came back to Bowie in 1980.
right. So you're all back at Bowie in
1980 was a big year back at Bowie.
John's taken over as coach. Can you tell us a bit about the circumstances of taking over as coach, John?
In 1979, I was getting the vibe that my time was done at Sandringham, and they wanted to upgrade at Bowie, so I was asked to apply and given an opportunity to get the job. I applied for the job and I missed it. John Lawless was appointed, which I was pretty disappointed with because I thought I was a shoo-in. And then I was told not to worry about that we'll do something about this, and then the committee changed over, and then next thing I'm in as coach. And I thought that was terrific because I was pretty bulletproof and will do well here. So off we went into coaching Bowie. I was really fortunate that John Lawless had such love for the club that it never bothered him, and he stayed on as reserves coach, which gave us a pretty good backup for a young bloke who'd never done anything like that before. And then I think, looking back, it was a little bit of a difficult time because the club's history was that it had always been a B-grade club in second division. Then Callaghan had taken them out of the waters, won the flag in 77. Then 78, 79 they'd been okay. 79 they'd made finals, got beaten in the first semi, but they were still a bit off the good sides. But the club was ambitious to do better, but unfortunately they were at the end of an era, so pretty much 3/4 of the side left, and it wasn't anything to do with me, but mostly they were just at the age where they'd had enough. Ray Johnson had been the dominant ruckman and he'd given it away, and Peter Linton had gone up to Cairns or somewhere, and Pissy Perry and Mick Kirkby, all those guys that had played there and been the backbone of the side had gone. And the second thing, of course, I didn't realise, here's me, a young naive guy, following Jerry Callaghan, who's an extraordinarily good talker and a wonderful character and a legendary sort of guy. But anyway, that never occurred to me, so we just got on with it, gathered up a few people. I was able to get my brothers, and I was able to drag a couple of other competitive guys in, and lo and behold, we all of a sudden were a really good side in the A grade, and we went through the season. We only lost 3 games for the season, but we lost 3 times to Ashburton. We lost both home and away games. We got over them in the second semi by a kick, but they got back at us and beat us in the grand final, which was a really big disappointment because we tried our guts out, and it was probably as high as the club had ever been. Like the year before they'd made finals, but they were sort of bowled out in the first semi, and they were the ones that made up numbers, whereas we, there was no fluke being there because we'd beaten everybody else twice out of twice. And so that was a disappointment. And then the But when you look back, that was a good achievement because it was the club going forward.
So how old were you then, John, when you were coaching? First year of coaching, getting into a grand final.
In 1980, I would have been 27 or 28. You
What a
know,
bad
which-
effort. I mean,
Yeah.
disappointing it is to lose the grand final.
It was, yeah, it was very disappointing. But anyway, that's how it went. But we sort of tried, and we built a really good side. And I would say, without pissing my own pocket, like the people we brought in that year lasted. A lot of those people finished up life members and lasted in the club for a long, long time. You know, Greg Barclay was captain for 10 years. Kenny
Greg
Robbo
Evans.
won Comp B and F. Greg Evans is a life member, you know. So we brought in fellows that just didn't come for 5 minutes and put a quid in their pocket, that played there and fitted in with the club, and it was their heart and soul. And I think that grounded the club really well for the next decade.
For prosperity, John, do you want to talk about any threats you made before the grand final?
For any
Threats?
that were made to me.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to, but I'll just throw it out there in case you want to.
Well, if you've got a story about the grand final and how football was then, I was a reasonably significant player at that time, and I must say the day before the grand final we watched the B grade grand final, which was between Port Colts and St Kilda City, and much to our amazement, they were two of the rugged clubs, and at half time there wasn't much in the game, and the umpire went to bounce the ball at half time and it's on. And it took the umpire something like 30 minutes to get the ball bounced to commence the second half, because every time he went to bounce the ball someone would whack someone. And the league thought this was an outrage, and so they'd spoken to us and said, we don't, we're playing on the Sunday, this was on the Saturday, and they'd spoken to us and said, look, we don't want a repetition of this because this would be really bad for the competition. And I must say, I said to them, well, go and have a talk in the Ashburton rooms, because that's the club that makes the mischief and we're not the ones to worry about. And then I'm walking around the boundary towards the room, and there was an old copper, his name was Billy, and he used to follow the footy at Sandy, and he called me over, he said, Johnny, I'd gone, yeah, he says, be a little bit careful today, I think there's a bit of a bounty on you, I've heard some bad stuff, I'd have some eyes in the back of my head. And I said, Billy, I can look after myself and I'll probably be okay. And I must say it didn't put me off or concern me, but it was just how football was then, and they were a pretty rugged sort of an organisation, and I wouldn't really have been surprised if something nasty and untoward happened, but it didn't happen, and because they got in front and they won the game. But yes, that's how footy was in money leagues.
Mm. And so you continued to coach 81 through?
I continued to coach in 81 and 82. With the benefit of hindsight, like our club probably ran on a footy budget of 20 grand then, and the two sides that were up with us were Taronga, Malvern and Ashburton, and they were probably running on a budget of 150 grand or maybe more, because I know that each time we would play them they would have recruited new ruckmen to start off with, which was obvious because I was playing against them. So I mean, we were awfully competitive for a club in a money league, for a club that didn't spend an awful lot of money. We were right up with the big fish, and I think all the boys that played there with us just did a wonderful job. It was a really good achievement. 81, I thought we had a slightly better side than we had in 1980. We went through the year. We had a little slump towards the end of the year because, like, my first year we'd hardly lost a game. The second year we might have lost 5 games or somewhere thereabouts, and but we come through it, won the second semi and got beaten in the preliminary final by Taronga Malvern. Club was a bit disappointed with that, because clubs sometimes are more excited about that you ought to win, and it's pretty easy when we're watching, you should have done this and you should have done that, and forgetting that maybe our budget was 10% of the teams we were playing against, and they had some pretty useful players. Anyway, we got rolled in that. And then the third year that I coached was, again, it was very difficult. It was the only time I've coached the club where we didn't make finals, And we didn't have that bad a win-loss ratio because it was the year that the Federal League and the South East Suburban League merged. And because nobody had any common sense, they took the top 10 clubs from the South East Suburban League and the top 6 from the Federal League, because the bottom 2 were no good. And we had a 16-team competition, which meant the draw was a little bit like the AFL draw, where you only played 3 teams twice. And somehow our draw turned out that we played Clayton, who were the reigning Federal Premiers, twice, and we played Ashburton, who were the reigning South East Suburban Premiers, twice. So in the 16-team draw, we've got, and those 2 teams incidentally played off that year, and there was a kick between them. So we had a very difficult draw. We missed the finals by a game, you know, and we were very competitive because we beat both of those sides during the year. So we were right up with the top teams, but it was very difficult with percentages, and with the other teams that beat us might have been playing the deaf and dumb twice rather than, you know, I don't know if that's politically correct, but I think that makes the point that it was quite a compromised draw. And so we finished with a positive win-loss ratio, but at the end of the year the club decided that they should seek greener pastures and that someone else might do better. So that was the first time they sacked me, and I was disappointed with that, and but that's water under the bridge. I didn't like that, and I was going to give footy away because I'd only ever played at Bowie at Sandy, and then somehow somebody roped me into having a kick up at Warragul, so then I finished up having 4 years of country footy in the Latrobe Valley League, and we won premierships, and we played interleague footy up there, and we met a lot of people, and so it turns out that one door closed and another door opened, and had some thrills out of that.
So your younger brothers, they stuck around at Bowie despite the fact that you got sacked?
Yeah. I didn't.
We stuck fat.
We did.
Because I'd sort of been around the club forever, I didn't go out of my way. I could probably, you'd never know, but I didn't have any interest in dragging people out of the club and didn't try to do anything like that. I ran my own race and went bush, and then 4 years later, John Lawless was coaching, and because he was a good buddy, that was enough to drag me back and make a little bit of peace and play there again, and I'm happy that that happened. So I had another 2 or 3 years then before I moved on to the Super Rules thing.
So how old were you for your last game of footy?
I was fairly old.
Right.
I was...
Was 91 your last year? You played, hang on, 89.
What about cameo appearances further down the track?
You played with John Aldridge, though, in 91,
Yes,
didn't
I
you?
did.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
how
but-
old were you then in 91?
Oh, well, in 91 I would have been
38?
38, 39.
Yeah.
Because after I'd give it away, I would occasionally fill in when they were short, because that's what local blokes do. And then we were playing Super Rules, and it was based down there, and even that last year when they faced relegation, a couple of us came back and played to try and help our way out of it. So we played a lot of footy there, and you know, it was and was still playing all right. You know, even when I came back there at 36 or whatever, I was still playing as the interleague ruckman. So I mean, I wasn't just playing taking somebody else's spot. I was still able to play.
The truth be known is the big fella reckons he could still be standing in the goal square, taking a mark and kicking a few stands. Just between us.
Well, we saw a bloke at Old Haileybury last week do that.
You haven't seen him at basketball lately.
Thank God.
Mike, how long did you keep playing for? You?
I made cameos for many years.
When you were still training.
87 I think would be the last I retired.
You don't want to speak about your last game in the final there against Trongalva?
We want to document that.
Up to you.
No, not on camera.
Oh, that was it.
We can edit.
Oh, you can. All right.
Because it was a final against Trongalva.
I got to the stage. I actually was a guy who would basically never miss a training run all year. I loved the footy and loved training, and then I got to sort of probably 86-ish, and it started becoming a bit of a drag rather than off to footy. Was you working during the day? Oh shit, footy training tonight. So I just started thinking it's just about time to retire. And 86 we finished top of the ladder. Played Noble Park in the second semi, beat them by 8 goals, I think. And kicked, Ronnie Nick, I'd tell you off the top of his head, 7.22 or 8.22? 9.22 in the granny, and got beaten by a couple of goals.
You played the next year.
I did play the next. No, I was just going to say Andy Moore. I didn't realise at the time Andy Moore I bumped into a few years later, who and he lagged himself in. We were talking about
Kicked
that.
7 in the preliminary final.
No, he kicked 8-1 in the prelim and 1-8 in the granny.
Yeah. I know.
Ugh. But yes, I would have been happy. Win a flag, bow out. But, played on 87. Bloody finished on top again. Got rolled by Noble Park in the second semi this time, but we were going to play Taronga Malvern and come back and have that crack. I just want to win a bloody flag and happily retire, enjoy a beer and watch others do it. And yes, as was mentioned, for one and only time in my life I got reported. Time on into the last quarter where we were 4 goals down or something. And it took me a couple of days to actually work out why I belted the bloke. It was a fellow named John Vickery, whose boy's playing at Richmond at the moment. It was a big, built like Adonis. Apparently he's a boxing coach, which I wish someone had told me at the time.
He is.
If he saw you coming, it might have been different.
Well, it might have been, but it's one of those, you see people talk about brain snaps and that, but I had one there, I promise you, because it wasn't premeditated. We were just on the ground niggling, and I think he copped the bad vibe from me, and it was because I was shitty as hell because we were going to lose, but I hadn't intended to hit him, but he was basically holding me down because he thought something was amiss, and by the time I got out of his clutches, I just belted him. Anyhow, so I got 6 weeks for that.
Off on a stretcher.
Alright, he went off on a stretcher. Yeah. Which actually helped with my retirement. Because yes, they couldn't sort of talk me to pre-season whatever, because look, I'm retiring, look, I couldn't play for half the bloody season anyhow.
So 87, the reserves won the grand final, is that right? 87, that one with the
That was
done at the end.
the undefeated Noble Park.
Was that 87?
Kansas
It could have
team.
been. Yeah.
So you didn't carry that on into the next week, did you, after the game?
No. I said that was my last official game,
Right.
but they made a habit of catching me down the pub or wherever on a Friday night at regular intervals for the next few years, where the twos were going to be short or something. So several times a year I'd sort of, because I sort of naturally stay in reasonable nick. So yeah, I might have played 30 games after I retired. I don't know, it went on for years.
Okay. And Tony, how long did you keep playing for?
Oh, I didn't play all that much longer. When I came back from Sandy, I hurt my knee the following year, so missed half a year. That was in 78, and then came back and played in 79, but it took me most of the year just to kind of get mobile again. Ended up having a good finish to the year, and then when Johnny came down, in 1980, I probably had 2 good years. 1980 I had a good year, the following year okay, but the knee was just never the same again, and I probably finished in 82.
And what positions did you both play?
I played down back, same as Mickey. I probably played full-back.
Fullback.
Well, I was centre half back when he was full-back.
I was going to say you both couldn't play at the one time.
No.
Although someone just did mention Kevin Cairns earlier, and I do have a funny story about Kevin. When was Kevin's first year? 1980?
1980. He
Yeah.
came
So
in.
1980, here's Kevin Cairns, big lump of a lad. Forget where he came from, Crib Point. Crib Point.
Played at Port Melbourne.
So
So
we're-
Port Melbourne, but
Yeah,
yeah.
but Crib Point, Port Melbourne. And we're sitting there before the game down at Bowie, and I've just met Kanga probably during the week of training, and he said, Tony, he says, here, he says, give me 2 pieces of chewing gum. He says, can you chew these for me? Kind of like that. I said, yeah, no worries. So kind of thinking, what the hell's going on here? So very gingerly, 2 pieces of chewy in my mouth, the old juicy fruit or PK, and just kind of, rolling them around and pulled them back out. And he looked at him, he says, no, chew the effing outside off them. He says, I've got no friggin' teeth. So here's the first time I bet the bloke. So I ended up being Kanga's gum chewer. And it was the start of a wonderful relationship. So me and Kanga kind of played full-back, back pocket. We'd go out wherever we'd be picked. We'd go out and Kanga, I reckon I had a bad knee. I was like Fred Astaire compared to Kanga. So we'd go out and he'd line up on whoever and the bloke would run away from him. I'd say, Kanga, let's swap over, We'd work it out. He was a good man.
So the bloke next to you, if you've got no teeth, could you hear anything he said?
He was a good he was a good man. He was a good talker.
Oh, he's a very good
He's a
talker.
very good talker.
He must have targeted you as having good dental hygiene.
Oh, this was pre
You're
those
flattering
days.
Pre
Those days. A very good man, Kevin Kids.
And Tommy, now I look at the best and fairest. That's you, I'm presuming.
Yeah.
3-time best and fairest winner.
It could be Tony.
Okay.
It's not. But it could
John
be.
did. John's got one there, but yes, that's me.
So 84, you won the best and fairest. 86, and then Johnny snuck in for 87. He obviously wanted to stop you from getting the trifecta. And then 94, there's a 8-year gap between. It's not a bad effort to come back 8 years later and win it.
84 and 94, yeah.
Was that all through that time?
I played continuously. 1990, I was still there in training, but I had a couple of knee operations and never pulled on the boots through the year. But I mean, I was always there trying to play. But other than that, I played every year, and I sort of would have polled, well in the votes, but I was always there. So
So your last, the last year you won it was the last year in the Southeast Suburban,
yes,
and then before it went into the amateurs. So
correct.
did you play in the amateurs at all?
I played the next 2 years in the amateurs.
How did you find the difference in the competition?
We started at a low grade, and our first year, we won the premiership in, what was that, 95. We had got a few players back. It all of a sudden became a buzz at the club. We really struggled in 94. We were in second division, we were getting beaten, and amateurs was just the right time to come in. People were concerned with starting in E grade or whatever grade you were. It was a bit of an issue. And the other big issue was
And not being allowed to
not being
drink
able to have a drink during Saturday was a huge issue, which you look back is just ridiculous. But so a few players came back to the club to play, and we weren't a young side, but we had a very good side. We were clearly, sort of too good for that year. But you've still got to win them. Like, we've played social cricket and all sorts of things, and whatever you play in sport, you find there's competition there. So it wasn't easy. We had a bit of hiccups during the year. We clearly were good enough. It was always going to be, if it was going to be the one that could get away. The amateur footy was good. I mean, there's a few sides that year because they had an amalgamation of E grades. We played Monash Griffins, who were like terrible, and you wondered why you're going out to play, and a few other clubs. But at the end of the day, we fell in the second semi-final. Things could have been different, but no, it was good. And like Michael, I even played a senior premiership side, and I had a few disappointments. So it's at the stage of my career where you're still hanging on, wanting to get a senior premiership. So it was just fantastic.
And the 97 premiership with a runner cropping up Paul Sherman most of the time, were you? After he'd been knocked out.
In 97 with Paul Sherman, well, Paul Sherman was fantastic, and he was playing on, who was their gunful forward for Geelong? He was a good player, and he's a big solid fella. But I mean, Sherman's normally a very cool customer, but he got very excited that day, and I think it looked funny on the video footage, but it was like I was fighting Paul or wrestling him, but let me at him, I'm going to kill him. Paul, he'll kill you. But anyway, I forgot about that. Paul Sherman, very good.
So do you think any year of the 3 you won was a better year, or a better year for you?
The first one's fantastic because you're very excited, and it's a great honour, which was in 84. 86, we just had a fantastic side, and it was the premiership that got away. We were playing, we had a fantastic side, we had a great year. we would have won it 9 out of 10, but we didn't. So you didn't win it. So to win a best and fairest in a year where you had probably the best side I've played in, and we could have won the premiership, would have been fantastic. In '94, I did have a couple of years off, and then came back and played. And it was last year. It was a pretty good achievement to have had a couple of years off. You're 35 years of age, and you still get the kick. So I thought it was a pretty good achievement. So it sort of highlights all of them.
Fantastic. And John, when did you come back to you mentioned you coached twice. When did you come back again?
I came back 10 years ago, 2002, 2001. The club was sort of had been struggling a little, and it was the same thing. I was invited to sort of come back and have a go, and I thought that'd be good. And the year before, I coached the seconds up at Sandy, and so I elected to do it, and I was able to get a bloke called Tim Renitz to come along with us, who's a pretty good operator. And so we finished up being co-coaches, which was something we were very happy with, and we were happy to get him there. And I thought our year was good. I still don't quite understand how we got chopped after that, but anyway, we did. The way the year went, the year before, they couldn't field seconds, so you had Sid Catlin and all those blokes playing a half dozen games in the seconds just to get the club functioning, which was a dreadful state of affairs. So when we took over, we got a little bit of buzz going back in the club. We seemed to get 40 or 50 kids training every night. We'd been relegated the year before and couldn't win anything in B grade and in C grade. We made the finals. We had high ambitions, and we thought we had a better side than that, but we never got a really good look at it with injuries and stuff. And we finished up making the finals, but got beaten a kick in the first semi-final, and I was pretty disappointed they didn't let us go on with it. As it turned out, the group we gathered together was pretty good, and the next year they had a better run with injuries, won the same number of games, but went to the finals with no injuries and won it. Probably, Pitsy was probably a week off being able to play when we lost that second semi, and we just didn't pick him because he couldn't keep up the training, and the next year they were all sound and they won it. So I think the group, again, we put together a group that stood good for a while there, but somehow they didn't think we were the people to do it. So
you're missing a McNicholas in the team.
Yeah. Well, they
disorientated you.
Yeah. Well, it's exactly right. And anyway, then when the kids were away, then they were away overseas, and Lukey was coming back the next year, and that would have helped the club go on. But no, so that was another disappointment with the club, but it happens when you're going as coach. You're going to get chopped one day, aren't you?
Not many volunteer to go.
Yeah.
So it's continued on with the boys playing?
It has continued on with the boys playing. They haven't really played anywhere else. After I got chopped that time at Bowie, I went down and helped Tony McGeorge out down at Parkdale Vultures for a while. So Luke was back at Sandy, and that year he played as a top-up player at Parkdale. Was, I don't know, his little protest or solidarity with his dad, that he had too many of his mates and it wouldn't be right to drag him away from him playing there. And he's played there the last decade, which in Luke's terms it's about 5 years of football, because he doesn't really string them together too well. And he and Sean have both travelled a bit, and they're enjoying their footy now, and it's a good place for them to be.
Right. And Luke continued on the tradition, playing in the 2010 Premiership, and Sean's played in the under-19s Premiership?
Yes, Sean played in the under-19s Premiership when Dietz was coaching, which was good, and Luke was able to play in the 2010 Premiership. And this year, up until last weekend, we all thought they had a very strong chance again, but time will tell whether last week is a really bad message or whether it was just a blip.
Okay. Now, Two more questions. One, anybody, feel free. What does the club mean to you, or to the family? And the other question is just any other funny stories you might want to share with us that you can think of.
Oh, well, the club's been a place where we've all grown up and we've spent a lot of time together, and as I said, I've had a couple of really bitter disappointments there, but I've had an awful lot of good times and good people that I've known.
Yeah, absolutely. Like a fantastic place to be involved with. The highlight of that was the 50-year thing, just recently. Now there are people, because I'm living up in St Kilda, I'm not down here all that often at the moment, and just people I hadn't seen for 25 years, and it's just like you hadn't seen them for a week. Just really good to get back and just talk to all those guys and girls again.
Oh, look, pretty much the same. You spend years from the time you're 11 or 12, and you might wander off for a couple of years, come back, but you've spent such a huge part of your life. There was a kid watching Randy Sheldrakes and those blokes over the fence and idolising them, to actually being one of those yourself sort of thing, to the next crop of juniors, blokes you've had a beer with and been through the nitty gritty over the years. It becomes very important, and it's not just Beaumaris Football Club. I guess it's any football club you're involved in, but Bowie's special to me because you've invested such a big part of your life in it. So many friends there.
Tom?
Yeah, well, it's like a second home. Our parents, came from Ireland in 54, 55, 56, whatever. And, we moved into the area in 62, so, you find the local sporting club, it's your second home, and, whenever you call down, however long it is, it still feels like home, and, it's fantastic.
That was one other thing, like to get back, I just remember like when my first year in the seniors out of under 17s, I think Billy Turner was coaching. Now there's another character. So that was before Jerry got down there. So the guy called Billy Turner coach, Mickey Shaw was captain, and it's an eye-opener in life, like to step up from just being a kid playing juniors, and all of a sudden you're playing with these blokes who are just vagabonds, and it's just a real eye-opener in life, and it's just part of who you are now and just how you develop and stuff.
Any last?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, not even a footy story. It just makes me think. I don't know if it's worth saying. You were saying, like John was saying about the year before in 2001 where Sid filled in and they struggled to play a game. But I think you're referring, there was a game around 2000. I know Mickey played. So
Ronnie Nico.
it's 2000 and it's a disaster. The footy club hasn't got a second side to play. They're having a struggle year. The twos especially. They're playing out at Ivanhoe. So it's a ring around, and like 2/3 of the sides of guys are filling in. Ronnie's playing, who's whoever old. Sid's playing. I played. Mickey plays. Jimmy Whittler plays. Like the whole side, and we're playing out of the old Ivanhoe. I just think it was a great club camaraderie. And I remember during the year I'd been being the fill-in umpire for the reserves. You would supply your club umpire. I remember early in the year, our twos had an ordinary year, and I remember umpiring, about round 8, and our seconds hadn't had a win, and our seconds stormed home and beat old Ivanhoe. It was their first win of the year. They're all cock-a-hoot, and as the umpire, I remember the Ivanhoe guys, as I'm going off the ground, calling me a cheat. You're a cheat. You've cheated. You've won them the game. Anyway, water off a duck's back. I just umpired as you do. So here I'm in last game of the year, and 3/4 of our side, the guys off the street just to make up a number because it'd be an embarrassment not to have a thing. So we've pulled aside together. It's a great achievement. We had photos before the game because it's a great achievement of the club just to get aside in the field. So we get down to the field. Ivanhoe was similarly down the ladder. Ivanhoe seconds have won like 8 in a row and are storming towards the finals. They're playing us. Their guys have got this in for us because we knocked them off in around. Little they know, like they're all pumped up. They beat us that day. Went off the ground singing the club song like they'd beaten Collingwood in the grand final. And I was just so happy. I've run around for 20 minutes feeling great, and then the hemi's gone, the calf's gone. You're gone, but it was it was fantastic.
So as Tommy said, they took a team photo, just to show you what we fielded that day. That it wasn't a proper second side. It was 2/3 of them out of the pub sort of thing. Just the Ronnie Nickos and Sid and myself and Tommy, and just it was a real memorabilia thing.
Good old idea.
Classic moment.
We haven't seen that photo.
Oh, I have a copy
There
of
was
that.
a few, it wasn't a
Right
team
Don't-
photo, but there was a few.
But old Ivan, did they realise that you had been the umpire in the first game?
I'm not sure, but I know they were so dirty on having beaten them. We'd stuck it up, and you know, aside when they have a big win, they go arm in arm singing the club song. And they're beating these vagabonds singing the club song, and you just go, Jesus
We
God.
just turned up to a
Well
board
done, well done.
And they're 2 years out of school, though.
Exactly, they were just so pumped.
And just talking about big wins, I know like I never won a senior premiership and played in the one grand final where all the brothers played in, we got beaten. But in the first year when all those federal teams came in,
Oh yeah.
and we were we knocked off the reigning
We knocked off Clayton.
the reigning federal premier was Clayton, who ended up playing the reigning Southeast Premier Ashy in the grand final. It was just a fantastic game. But we were the first Southeast team to knock off a federal team, and we knocked off Clayton down at Bowie, which I still reckon was the biggest home and away win game I played in.
Oh, was
Did
Yeah,
they
it was
serve
just-
it up to us later
I
in the
reckon
year
it
at
was the
Clayton though?
Yeah.
Did they serve it up
Well,
to
that
us?
was
I'll tell
a
you.
massive. That
It was a
massive
fantastic
win.
Yep.
Because they were a pretty rugged side, and the Federal was a bit rougher than us. And I remember clearly having to leave the training track, having a serious hamstring issue halfway through training, and on Thursday night, and thinking, "Oh, this is bloody awful." You know, here you're captain, coach, and you're the big, strong man leading the club, and you're just cactus. So I thought, "We'll blow it. I'm going to play, because we're going to get our heads knocked off. So I might as well be part of that." So we went out and started playing against Clayton. At this stage, round 3 of the year, not one Southern League team had beaten any Federal League team. So they bounced the ball in the first quarter, and this is at Bowie, and they kicked 7 goals something, maybe 7-6 or 7-8, and we might have kicked 1 goal. So it was going to be really quite humiliating. Only as footy was then, in the second quarter they decided, well, not only would they wipe us on the scoreboard, they'd belt the living suitcase out of us. And all of a sudden we got an odd free kick, and I remember I had this crook hammy and couldn't really run or jump, and at one stage a bloke whacked me at the centre bounce, and he's like that, and I got about 10-15 metres as till I'm in the goal square, and I kicked a goal. And next thing we've come back, and we're only a couple of goals down. We got up and won it by a couple of points, and I must say that was a massive home and away win. We were really, that was as good a home and away win as I think the
I don't
club's
think they
possibly
knew what
ever
happened
had.
to them.
Yeah, they couldn't believe it, because they thought, number one, their league was grades ahead of our league, and number two, they were grades ahead of their league, because both Ashy and Clayton had won 2 or 3 flags in a row at that stage. But that was a really, really gutsy win against a really strong team, and it does stand out as a strong one there.
And we went to interleague training the following day, and like no one could believe we knocked them off. Although I think it was an interesting day. I think we went and ran 2 laps because Mickey Jenkins was having his 21st the day after. So gone to interleague training, ran 2 laps, hit the showers, and then went to Mickey Jenkins' 21st.
Well, I can think of a funny story with interleague training. One of the boys on the couch here, when they did the interleague training, then I was asked to be in it, and I said I'd only be in it if it was sort of proper footy. And that was the year before we joined the federal sides, and proper footy to my mind meant that you didn't pick one person from each club and go out and do your best. I said there's 3 really strong clubs, and we need to have most of the players from the 3 clubs, and if you're happy to do that, I'm 100% in, and if you're not, well, I couldn't be bothered going. So we did that, and we had a good side together, and we were playing, and that's not the gist of the story. So I played off over 2 years, and we finished up second in all of Victoria, got beaten by the Mitcham League, whatever, the Eastern District League, which was strong. But the funniest story was, at one stage during that, as coach, sometimes you had to have little discipline rules, and you had to have things, and so...
Make an example of your brother.
So one of my brothers, who was in the interleague thing, at one stage we might have lost a game, and we had a compulsory Sunday morning training, and this lad might have been out very late on the Saturday night and failed to arrive at Sunday morning, and so the threatened penalty was you're not playing the next week if you don't arrive. So anyway, despite me sending people around to try and rouse Michael, he didn't get to training, so then I had no choice but to leave him out of the side. So to this day he's still bitter at me, because the following week he played in the seconds on the Saturday, and then he played on the interleague side the week later, and he insists that that was an insult and I robbed him, whereas I explained to him he only ever got a game in the interleague side because I was on selection.
Very good. Don't have any other questions unless you guys want to say something. I said Ian and I, we sort of buried ourselves in the Sandringham Library and came out with a photo of you with some weights. The caption was, Mac is back.
Oh, yeah.
Someone must have given him the weights.
I think that's from when I was playing footy down at Warrigal. That was between the 1982 exit and the 1987 comeback.
Were they they weren't the Warrigal Demons, were they? No? Looked like he had a Melbourne
the
jumper
Red
on.
Legs.
No,
Jumpers.
they were, well, it's like a Melbourne jumper.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, except it was black with the red yoke.
Okay.
You know, and that was
They're the Red Legs.
yeah.
Red
Okay.
Legs.
They yeah. Oh, and that was a terrific club. You know, and the first year I went up there, we finished 4th. The second year we won the premiership and we won all 3 finals by loads. And then the next year they reckon we were the best side in the whole of country Victoria. Anyway, they sort of get at you as they do up there, and we got pipped in the finals. And then I played one more year, and then I'd had enough of it, you know, and I thought I was gone. But Lolas got us back and had another kick back at Bowie for a couple of years with him.
Okay, guys, thanks very much for your
Yeah.
time. This DVD's been a bit of work in progress, and what you would have seen up on the screen on the 50th.
That a bit, but you're
That's the
obviously
start,
going
yeah.
to add to it for posterity.
Yeah.